Hey there, I'm Alex Kidman. It's the middle of the night, and I'm about to go into a field and take some probably fairly poor photos. Why? Because I'm testing out the Google Pixel 9 Pro XL, the bigger model, and specifically its low light performance. And to do that, obviously, you've got to take photos in low light, but also I want to compare it against a bunch of other phones. And in this case, that bunch of other phones is the iPhone 15 Pro that I'm actually filming this with, as well as this that you can probably see in the reflection anyway, which is the Google Pixel 8 Pro, so last year's flagship phone. But some ground rules before I start. For a start, I am looking for low light performance here, not necessarily artistic, ooh, that's a pretty moonshot, or those are nice fireworks, or anything like that. I just want to see how well they cope in low light. So these are not necessarily aesthetically pleasing shots. Everything I'm doing is captured handheld. Yes, you'd get a very different result out of a tripod because in low light, all of these flagship phones will take longer exposures and do slightly different things, but I'm going handheld. The one thing there is that there might be very slight framing differences between some of these shots. That's absolutely my fault, but they should be minor. I'm not really taking them into consideration when I'm evaluating these shots. Finally, because I know somebody's going to bring it up, yeah, I'm not comparing another Android phone here aside from the Pixel 8 Pro. Would have loved to have the Samsung S24 Ultra, for example, along for the ride, but I just didn't have one to test with. It's also why I'm testing, for example, with the iPhone 15 Pro and not the Pro Max, although the Pro and Pro Max should perform fairly identically in low light anyway. Google has bumped up the prices on all of its Pixel phones, and so they really do need to step up in their low light game. So let's get into it. I'll give you some commentary over each of the photos and make it clear which phone they've come out from. YouTube might do a bit of crushing on these, so I'll be interested in people's feedback on what they think of each camera and photo and who they think comes out the winner at the end. Let's get into it. If you've followed my reviews for any length of time, you've probably seen this shot a whole bunch of times because it's very much one of my standard low light shots. I could, for the record, not really see the field or the big mound of dirt in front of me while taking this. Pixel 8 Pro does a pretty decent job of grabbing color and detail, although a little bit darker in some areas. The iPhone shot is obviously a fair bit sharper, slightly different exposure. I should point out every phone was allowed to just settle on its own focus point and exposure for all of this, because again, you can modify the results there, but the 15 Pro shoots this quite well. And then if we jump back to the Pixel 9 Pro XL, it's very, very similar to what the Pixel 8 Pro does. Not exactly surprising, probably exactly the same algorithm. Maybe slightly better, but I would give this to the iPhone out of three of them for this particular shot. Jumping over to some trees which were shrouded in darkness, I could not see any of these leaves or anything. The Pixel 8 Pro does a pretty decent job of it, but this was where I first saw a big difference between it and the newer Pixel 9 Pro, as well as the iPhone. So, for example, if we jump over to the iPhone 15 Pro, total color difference here. Aesthetically, this is easily my favorite shot of all three of them. Does it rather nicely, almost makes it seem like it's coming in to daylight, but of course it wasn't. It was quite dark there at the time. However, the Pixel 9 Pro actually did a slightly better job of grabbing some of the detail of the not on lighting rig you can see on the left-hand side there. And as such, I'm tempted to actually call this one a draw. It's very, very close between the 9 Pro XL and the iPhone here for this particular shot. Doing a near 180 from where I was standing, there's a clubhouse in the distance. And for this photo, I wanted to look at the ground and the sky, but especially the clubhouse and how it handled the light there. And the Pixel 8 Pro does okay, but it does lose a lot of detail blowing out around those lights around the front of the clubhouse. What's interesting here is that the iPhone 15 Pro does a very similar thing. It's a slightly better shot than the 8 Pro, but it does lose some of that detail around the clubhouse and around some of the light sources that are around there, whereas the Pixel 9 Pro actually manages to grab just a little bit more detail, especially around that upper level. It loses it less for the light there. And a reminder, I was letting the phones actually set all their own focal points here. So this is very much down to the phone's logic. You could tweak this as much as you liked, of course, taking these photos, but I've left it up to each of the phones. This one I've got to give to the Pixel 9 Pro XL. Now for a little astrophotography. Obviously would be better with a tripod, definitely would be better without being in the terrible light polluted air of Sydney, but I do what I can. The Pixel 8 Pro does okay, but it is absolutely swamped by the iPhone 15 Pro, which delivers easily the best shot of all three phones under these circumstances, and it's not even particularly close. And to be honest with you, the Pixel 9 Pro XL basically took the same shot that the 8 Pro did under these circumstances. It's not terrible, of course, but this absolutely is the iPhone's win, hands down. You know what we need? We need some spooky playground photos because, well, a grown man hanging around a playground late at night with thousands of dollars worth of phones, that's not spooky enough, right? And look, here, actually, I've got to be honest, at the time I started to worry because the Pixel phones don't do a terribly good job in situ of showing you the shot you're going to end up with. They actually looked a lot worse than what the iPhone did because the iPhone actually does give you a better idea of what the final shot might be like. But I digress. The Pixel 8 Pro here does a solid enough job of grabbing spooky horse here. It is a little bit dark and it is the weakest of all three shots, by a smallish margin though. The iPhone 15 Pro does a good job here, although it does look a little artificial. There's definitely a little bit of post-color processing going on here, and this is something I've accused Pixel phones of in the past. Apple seems to be doing it here too. And then finally moving on to the Pixel 9 Pro XL, same kind of thing as the 8 Pro, of course, but a slightly better shot. I actually kind of like the ambience on this, and I know I said I wasn't doing arty kind of comparisons here, but I think this probably gets a better true representation of the shot. I'm going to give this one to the Pixel 9 Pro XL, although only just. What about low-light video? Well, this gets even more complicated. You can shoot low-light video, of course, and I've done that just here. You can see what I'm going to do, the two shots I'm taking, one panning shot across the field, and then I'll take a selfie shot, because lots of people like to film themselves. But it's more complicated because the Pixel 9 Pro XL has a separate night sight mode, which uses off-site post-processing. It warns you that it will take some time of each of those shots. So what I'm going to include here are the basic panning shots first, and then the selfie shots. But for the Pixel 9 Pro XL, I will include both the unimproved and then the improved night sight shot. So you can see what the difference is there and make your own judgment calls. By way of comparison, here's what the Pixel 8 Pro does with night video. Isn't it clear? And here's the iPhone 15 Pro trying its hand at some low light video. Here's the Pixel 9 Pro XL just doing regular low light video. This is not in its night sight mode. So interestingly, night sight mode will not shoot from the front lens. It only does it from the back lens. So I've had to turn the camera around, so my framing might be a little bit different for this one, but that's what this looks like and sounds like. So what's the practical takeaway here? Does the Pixel 9 Pro XL shoot well? Well, in low light, yeah, mostly, but it's definitely not best in class. And when you consider that the 15 Pro is last year's model, Apple will have a new one along soon, Google's got its work cut out for it. It does tend to do its whole pixel feature drop thing, so the cameras might improve over time. But in terms of low light performance at launch, yeah, I could have wanted a little bit more, Google.